Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, let's not even cut that. It's freezing cold out, and Ken, your humble hostess here in the Bronx. We're checking out the Uptown Rumble heavy music from the Bronx. And here to tell us a little bit about this awesome exhibit is Dr. Stephen Payne. Hi, Doc. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for making the trek up here.
Oh, I love it. I love a chance to see something interesting, and this sounded interesting. Sorry I missed the opening, though.
Yeah. No, it was packed. I mean, you couldn't even move around. It's really cool to see, people who hadn't seen each other in decades came out for us. So
tell me a little bit about the exhibit, how it came to pass. And
Sure. So, a couple different things as far as how it came to pass. First, just to be upfront, I love, hardcore and metal myself. So, there's an obvious personal stake in it. I'm not from the Bronx. I don't have the, privilege of being from the Bronx. But I've lived here for like 13 years now, my adopted home. And, basically within a couple years of moving here, I started finding more and more bands that I was just listening to on my own who were from here. I had no clue before. A couple of them I'd already listened to for, more than a decade. So that's in the background, of course, with the exhibit. But the real catalyst for the exhibit, we record a lot of oral histories here at the Bronx Historical Society. Mm-hmm. And something that kept coming up in oral histories, not at all, related to, music even. What question we always ask people, regardless of the topic, is, what kinds of music did you hear in the street? What kinds of food did you eat? All those kinds of generic questions. But people kept mentioning, especially ones growing up in like the 70s and 80s in the Bronx, either they or their brother, their sister, friends, family members, a very vibrant recollection of, hard rock and metal, especially in the air, along with hip hop, along with funk, along with soul, along with salsa, like all the other genres that are more commonly associated with the Bronx. Kept hearing it in oral history after oral history, there's a graph writer that I can think of who, really into Iron Maiden, had a, vest and everything. We were doing a history, oral history about graffiti, and that came out. But, time after time it started coming out. So I said, well, I already love a lot of this music to begin with. Let me try and dive in. So I contacted, purely by chance, the first person I contacted was Gary Muttley from Billy Club Sandwich and now from Brass Knuckle Brigade. And he happened to be connected with probably about half of the bands or musicians who are showcased in this exhibit. And he put me in touch with a couple other people. Basically within a month or so I had, the like 3 or 4 key players who were connected with like everyone from the scene, especially in the 80s and 90s. With some of the older parts of the history in this exhibit, like in the late 60s and into the 70s, that was more like an artificial kind of effort, having to see if we could get in touch with this person and that person, because they just didn't have any organic ties to the scene still. But yeah, especially in the 80s and 90s, hardcore, thrash, death kind of scene that was going on in the Bronx, a few people were able to put me in touch with everyone. We started recording oral histories, recorded about 48, 49 so far. We'll be recording more as well. So that's the kind of backbone of this exhibit, is those oral histories. And through the oral histories, we were able to, every time we'd record an oral history, get to know people. You're spending 2, maybe 3, sometimes 4 hours with people, a lot of quality time, people sharing their life stories. And so they're, became very interested in the exhibit, started donating material, or in some cases loaning material. And pretty much everything in this exhibit, except the early material, is either directly given by the musicians who are featured, or on loan from them. So it's a very like grassroots kind of crowd-funded exhibit in that respect, and that is thanks to the oral history work.
Sweet. Can you take me through some of the highlights?
Absolutely. So yeah, the exhibit begins here. There's some interactive elements I'll touch on first. There's a video kiosk here. You can swipe, left or right to access different videos that are listed there. The sites really of the scene. Some in Bronx venues, some around New York.
Right.
Because most of them are home videos. The
Right.
sound quality is pretty poor, so don't have that turned up by default.
This is before the phones and everything.
That's right.
My friends.
That's right. There's a guitar that's meant to be played. That's also on loan from someone in the exhibit, Gio Estrella, from Demised and many, many other bands. But yeah, you know, people who've never played a guitar before will pick that up and play it, and you know, the idea is hopefully they'll become interested in it. There's 2 interactive elements in the other gallery, 2 listening stations that I'll just mention in passing, a oral history station and a music listening station. Since this is deficient in the sound quality, the music listening station is where, you know, you'd really go to hear the sounds of the exhibit. And then, you know, the exhibit kind of more or less goes chronological from the emergence of psychedelic rock, the Blues Magoos being one of the earliest psychedelic groups in the US. They're from the Bronx, went to DeWitt Clinton High School, didn't graduate from DeWitt Clinton High School. They were too busy, you know, having a good time down in the West Village.
Yep.
And
I see you got Dictators. Yep.
Exactly.
Kiss, because Ace was from Bronx.
Exactly. Aerosmith even.
Aerosmith? That's right,
because Joey Kramer's from the Bronx. You know, Tish and Snooki. Also Twisted Sister, because their guitarist Eddie Ojeda's from the Bronx.
Mendoza's here too, right?
So there's.
I know Eddie is.
Both with Twisted Sister and with Aerosmith, you know, there's other members of the band that seem to have lived in the Bronx off and on, but you know, we're kind of going with the surefire ones in the exhibit because don't want to make you know, too many unsubstantiated claims. But yeah, you know, by the time you get into the 70s, there's just a lot of the most pivotal bands have some kind of tie to the Bronx and you know, the harder rock kind of stratosphere. And then, you know, there's some lesser known ones too. Black Lace is one that we just found through the course of doing this exhibit. There, you know, seemed to be one of the first metal bands in the U.S. fronted by a woman, but all of the members are from the Bronx as well. Cold Sweat, you know, this kind of punk metal fusion in the early 80s. And then just tons of death metal and thrash metal bands. You know, a lot of them very underground, but of course Anthrax, Demolition Hammer. You know, those are by far the 2 most famous. But so many underground bands as well. Some playing in the Bronx, some of them who never had a chance to play in the Bronx. But yeah, demo tapes on display.
This is how it was done.
Installation on tape trading, including letters back and forth, you know, photocopies from some zines of the time. And Arsenic is to me, one of the coolest stories in this exhibit because, you know, it was started by 2 Cuban brothers in the South Bronx in the early 80s. And what they ended up playing was, you know, early kinds of death metal, but, you know, they were writing to, you know, Chuck from Death. They were writing to, you know, like Possessed. They were writing to Necrophagia, and they didn't have any demo tapes to trade, and they eventually made some really poorly recorded ones at their apartment, but they were playing, you know, in the similar kinds of techniques as those other early death metal bands. Unfortunately, they never put out, you know, official recording or anything. But you know, the fact that one of the earliest death metal bands is from the South Bronx, just
that's great.
It's a really cool thing.
And now this is the other room.
This is the other room. This is devoted to hardcore. So it starts with some of the Bronx musicians that were in the, you know, wider early New York.
All right, so since
scene.
we're in hardcore, I'm going to ask you, what is your 3 first hardcore bands that you like the most?
The 3 first hardcore bands?
Yeah, because I'm going to ask you how that applies today.
The 3 first ones that I came across, or the ones that are
that you
the top
followed,
ones?
that you were just like they did it for you.
Well, so it's interesting because, you know, I grew up in Texas, so you know, it took me a little bit to get to New York hardcore, but you know, at the time, Sick of It All was and still remains one of the top hardcore bands for me. You know, I came across Billy Club Sandwich at that time, but I didn't listen too much to them. I mean, now I listen to them all the time in Brass Knuckle Brigade, which has some of the members. But yeah, Agnostic Front is another band. And then, for me as a kid from Texas, not really, I guess understanding the niceties of different kinds of musical scenes at the time. Like I was drawn to some street punk as well from New York, like the Casualties,
Sweet.
But yeah, that made me really
I asked him for 3, he gave me 4. Right?
It made me really stand out in Texas at the time.
And today, is there any hardcore band that stands out to you? You don't have to name 3, but I mean, is there any 1 or 2 that's not in that list?
Yeah. So let me think. Ones that I go back to, these days, for the most part, I gravitate towards death metal, and there's so much hardcore going on.
All right, so you could tell me your favorite. Days. You could tell me your 2 favorite death metal bands.
Well, right now I'm listening a lot to. I wouldn't call them my favorite, but Bonginator, I'm really digging their Retro Death album. Brings you back to the '80s. There's like a song that's inspired by RoboCop. There's like a song inspired by They Live. I mean, it's just a real nostalgic album, but it's a lot of fun. Not really technical like some some death metal you can listen to, but I like them. And Frozen Soul are
very good.
Also up there, a band I go to a lot these days.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to the other room, and I know you have to run off. So, my friends, if you're watching this interview, which I hope you are, we're gonna walk through the exhibit a little slower after Dr. Payne heads out. This is the Romero.
That's right.
Okay, so I was in the right spot.
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
When you're new to a museum, you get confused easily.
That's right.
So how long is this exhibit going to be here?
So this exhibit's only going to be up for a little while longer. It goes down. It's January 12th. Is the last date. Yeah, it's been up since April. So yeah, it's coming down in January.
Okay, all right. And it's free to come in, and you ask for people to donate?
That's right, yeah. The suggested donation, $3 for kids or seniors, $5 for adults, but no one will be turned away if they don't.
Right. What can you tell us about the actual society itself, though? That's always good to know.
Yeah. So we operate the Museum of Bronx History, which we're standing in right now. And of course, as you can see, it hosts changing exhibits on Bronx history, a wide variety of topics. We also operate the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage, that's our other historic house museum, and a research library and archives. And especially through our research library and archives, we're very actively engaged in preserving and documenting Bronx history. And that's really the material that we end up using for our exhibits is a lot of, that real slow-going documentation effort that takes place through the library and archives. That's the avenue through which we did oral histories for this exhibit was through the archives, and we have a lot of other projects going on at any given time. They don't all result in an exhibit, or at least not immediately in an exhibit, maybe down the line. But the goal is to archive material and eventually to present it in a variety of ways to the public. So we do that here at our museums, library and archives, and also around the Bronx and New York City, different sites, public libraries, schools, community centers, all of that, different kinds of public programs, usually 2 to 3 a week.
Very cool, very cool. It's nice. And you've been involved with this for a while then?
Yeah, since 2020.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, I know you have to go, so I'm going to let you get out.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No, it's all right. It's all right. No, it's great. Thank you, Dr. Stephen Payne. I appreciate your time. And my friends, let's get into this here Uptown Rumble. Rumble in the Bronx. Ooh, it sounds like a song, doesn't it?
It does, right?
All right, my friends. Stay tuned for more, okay? Why? Because I told you to. Okay, bye.